Amanda. Today I'm going to be doing another recent reads video of some books that I've read recently. They are not my favorite books ever. This was not my best recent reads video in terms of like 5-star reads, but I do have one that I thought was amazing. So let's just start with that one. Wretched by mcintire. If you've watched some of my other recent reads videos, you know I love this freaking series. I am like a broken record with these books, but they're so freaking good. And this one, I say this every single time, this one's the best one in the series. This one is the best one in the series. I don't know. It's so hard. I definitely like Scarred more than Hooked. In my head, this one was just so good and it's my favorite, but that's just because I just read it. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you just feel like, oh my God, that's my favorite book ever. Right after you read something that's a 5-star. But this was a 5-star. It was so freaking good. This series follows Disney villains, but it's very loosely inspired. It's not one of those things where it's actually like in a fantasy world or anything. It's actually in a dark romance world. This one follows a crime family, but it's so loosely based on these stories that unless you're a real big fan of the actual thing that it's inspired by, then you won't pick up on these subtle hints to it. And I wasn't a huge fan of Wizard of Oz growing up, so I didn't pick up on a whole lot. I did pick up a whole lot in the other books, but I'm sure there's also more for people who are big fans of Oz. I just loved it so much because we have a female villain and she is just this badass female character that doesn't take no shit no mo, because she lost her sister, and that's kind of like the turning point for her when she turned bad, is that she lost her sister who meant a lot to her, and now she has to deal with Dorothy walking around thinking that she's so cool and like the best child ever. Meanwhile, she's the one running all of the stuff in her crime family. Like the whole thing, the whole show is being run by Evelyn, but she gets no credit and she's just a badass bitch, and we do stand. There's so much steam in these books in terms of like, it still has plot. Okay, but there's a lot of good steam, banter, dirty talk, all the shit we like to see. And this one's a hate to love because we're following a guy who is an undercover Fed who is trying to find the supplier. And so he's infiltrating, you know what I mean? 21 Jump Street, infiltrate the dealer, find the supplier.
Infiltrate the dealers, find the supplier.
What if we find the supplier first? We don't have to worry about the dealer.
God damn.
So what's happening is he's infiltrating Evelyn to find the supplier. You gotta read it. You gotta read it. Then we have another kind of in the same realm territory. We have Mafia Romance, Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. This one I rated 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, but I didn't think it was like a 5-star. I know a lot of people love Callum and Ada, but I didn't love their characters as much as I feel like other people do. So that's why I was like, you know what? I'm gonna find my couple that I relate to the most, and that'll be my 5-star. We have another badass female main character. Love to see it. And she's being put in an arranged marriage with the family's enemy family because she ended up going to this party and she created this whole thing. She set their curtains on fire in this library. They weren't supposed to be at the party. And so now they're just going to fix it by marrying them off together, because this has been a whole thing for the families over the years, and they want to join together because together they're better than being always at war with each other. And we slowly find out that they're really good together. They work really well as a team, and there's a lot of action in this one too that I really enjoyed. Next, we have a book that's been circulating the romance community right now, and that is Confidence of Wildflowers by micalea Smeltzer. I rated this one 2 stars, so let me explain. I had every intention of loving this book. Even when I was 30% in, I was really liking it. It was very much character driven, but I didn't mind. You know, I'm down for that when I know that that's the case. And it was just really slow in terms of plot. We weren't going anywhere really, but I trusted that the book was going to deliver something at the end, because we have this character, she's going through a lot of trauma, you know, she has a past, and I thought it was going to do something with that. But what it did is it just kept throwing trauma at you. It didn't feel genuine to me in terms of her backstory or even the later parts of the book where we're supposed to care so much. I felt angry instead. Non-spoilery thoughts are this book is an age gap romance, but it's very much more than that. It's not a lighthearted, fluffy romance book, which I knew going into it. So I was prepared for something to happen, but I was not prepared for it to be done in the way that it was. The romance had me intrigued in the beginning of the book, but as it went on, I was not comfortable with what was going on with her boyfriend. It follows an 18-year-old girl. She doesn't know what she wants to do really with her life, but she is working at her mom's store and her boyfriend is going off to college. So she ends up getting this new next door neighbor that has a son and he asks her to nanny for him. They have this kind of connection where they don't know what to do about it, but it's a slowish kind of burn, all while she has a boyfriend. And now this is not what bothers me. I was fine with it at first, but towards the end of the book and finding out what happens in the second book in the duet, I'm very uncomfortable with how things went. So this is gonna get into spoilers. So the reason that I felt uncomfortable with the cheating aspect after I read the whole entire book, like this was towards the end, after the huge trigger of the death of a child, this girl, she doesn't stay to help Thayer with his emotions or just be there for him. Just be there. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have to make him feel things. We can just be there. We don't need to push him into anything. But no, she goes to her boyfriend, her ex-boyfriend, and wants him to coddle her about the death of this man's son that he hated, and she had been fucking around with him. I'm so confused. That just feels very weird to me. And I know it's fiction, but it still feels weird. I was just like, what was the point of that whole story? Usually we have something where the boyfriend sucked and the boyfriend was the worst. We want to get rid of him. And so it doesn't seem like as big of a deal in fiction for these things to happen. But this man, Caleb, was the best. He was chill. He was nice. He supported her through everything, even though she like was the worst to him. Like if I was friends with Caleb and I heard all the shit she was doing to him, I would be absolutely done. Absolutely no contact with this woman ever again. Like, sir, no, you're not going to coddle her. Even though this tragic thing happened, this is none of your business at this point. That's the first thing. The second thing is this story with the tragic backstory of her and her father. Why was that put in here? I don't understand, because nothing came to fruition out of it. Nothing happened to say, you know what, I'm healing from this situation. So what was the point? Just to throw in trauma and then add in the trauma from the death of a child? I do not understand. I just don't get it. Usually, you know, when there's trauma, you get this whole story about her healing herself. I'm just one of the people saying this. I know a lot of people have said that they don't like this part of the book either, but I just have to put my opinion out there too. Didn't like it. The reason I rated it 2 stars was because I was liking it in the beginning. I think it had potential, and so I give it 2, but it would be a 1. And then in terms of the death of a child, I mean, it was heartbreaking, but I wasn't as invested in the characters as I would have wanted to be for that to hit me emotionally. In fact, I was just angry at the whole situation because it felt unnecessary, and like we weren't leading up to this situation. It was just like, bam, I'm just gonna hit you with this. And it just felt unnecessary. Why was that the story? There was no plot other than having this tragedy happened to this relationship. So didn't love her, and I didn't like the main character at all, so that didn't help anything. I didn't respect her as a character. All right, now we have some like fantasy type books. Let's go back to like some good territory. I know I just ranted about that book for a second, but I read Acotar by Sarah J. Maas for our read along. Be sure to join in the Discord. We're reading Akamaf next month, so May, and we're having a blast reading it. It was my first time reading it. I'm really liking the story. It was a little bit slow in the beginning, I will say, but I really liked it towards the end. It just got really good once we got to like the action. I'm 100% invested. So I rated this one 3.5 just because I felt a little bit bored in the beginning, and I don't know if I love Feyre all that much. She is not my favorite character ever. I do like the sisters a little bit more than her, but I think she'll grow on me as time goes on. I do like Rhysand a lot. He seems like every hero that I love, so I'm sure I'm going to stan Rhysand. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about this one. I'm excited to get to some steam because this is called Steamy on TikTok. I'm confused, but I hope the next one's actually steamy. I don't know. I will say I was really surprised at how there was no twist with Tamlin. Now don't spoil me for like the next book or anything, because maybe it happens in the next book. But this one, I was expecting something crazy, so when nothing really happened, I was very underwhelmed. And that's on me for having those expectations. But I've seen, you know, people spoil this book all the time. It's all over TikTok, like, oh, I trusted Tamlin. I can't believe I trusted Tamlin. So I was prepared to not like him. And I was just like, okay with him the whole time. I was like, yeah, he's fine. I'm not really loving him. He's kind of like vanilla. He just felt just... Like if he was the story, I would have just been like, okay, yeah, like I might not read the next book. So I had so many theories going on about like him working with that evil lady and he's actually like married to her or something. I thought that he was gonna be like on her side. I don't know. So 3.5 for this one. Then we have Dragon's Bride by Katee Robert. This was our Sugar and Spice book club pick. Next month is Something Wilder by Christina Lauren. But this one was pretty good. I mean, it was really short, so it felt a little bit like the relationship was rushed, but I don't think I can blame the book for that just because I know it's like in a novella type style. So this one follows a girl who makes a deal with a demon to escape her abusive husband, and her deal is to be auctioned off to whoever bids the highest for her, and she ends up getting with this dragon and she has to give him the opportunity to seduce her for 7 years, and then her contract is up and he can't make her do anything against her will. It's steamy. It's a fun time. I actually thought it would be steamier because I've heard Katee Robert does a lot of steam, but this one, it was steamy, but I was thinking in my head it would just be back to back to back steam, but this one had a little bit of plot to it, a little bit of politics. I give this one 3 stars. I didn't love the breeding kink in this. I'm not sure if I'm into that, but it was still really fun and I will read the next book. The next one's called something, The Kraken's Sacrifice. That one has a cold and distant hero. This one had like a cinnamon roll hero. So it was interesting because he's this like giant dragon and he's just treating her like a queen. Would I recommend if you want something short and monstery? Yes. Then we have a YA fantasy. In YA fantasy, I just want to be transported to a new world. And I really want it to just be this beautiful world where I can escape. And that's what this gave me. It wasn't a beautiful world by any means. It was actually gritty and harsh at times, but it really took me out of my life. And I love that about YA fantasy. It doesn't necessarily have to have romance. This one did have a romance and I really loved the way that it all went. So we follow a girl who has been neglected and just abandoned by her family. She's supposed to be living with her mom, who is an alchemist, but her mom is so dedicated to alchemy that she just abandons and neglects her daughter. And her dad abandoned her. Her brother passed away. It's a horrible situation. So she's left in this house alone, and she's also not accepted by society because of her religion. So that's part of the story as well, and it's just really well done. And then our other character is Weston. He is wanting to be an apprentice of an alchemist, and he's just been not doing so well in terms of alchemy. He really wants to do this because it's the only way to get into politics, and he wants to have his family be in a better place because right now they're really struggling. So he seeks out Margaret's mom, who is not obviously there to teach anybody anything, but he ends up going to Margaret's house and seeing that she's alone. He begs her to let him stay while her mom's gone, and she kind of lies and says she'll be back in 2 weeks, even though she has no idea when she'll come back. So at first they don't really get along. You know, she's kind of cold and distant, and he's kind of a flirt. It is so much fun. Their relationship is very genuine and it's slow building, but the main action plot in this is that there's a creature called the Hala that comes once in a while. It's like an evil being that destroys crops and people die, stuff like that. So every time that this thing shows up, they have a hunt for it. And this hasn't happened in like 100 years or something crazy in this book. So she ends up seeing one and she's like, oh my God, the Hala hunt is going to come back. And this is a hunt that you have to have a partner. You have to have an alchemist and a hunter. And she is a hunter and Weston is an alchemist, or he's trying to be. So they sign up for the hunt and it is so good. I really, really liked it. I loved everything about it. It's a slow moving YA fantasy. So it's not like super fast paced or anything. It's just really well done YA fantasy. So those are the books that I've read. Hopefully I didn't rant for too long. But if you like romance books like me, be sure to like and subscribe down below for more bookish content. I'd love to have you here and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.